Alrighty, Cherub. So today we're going to talk about the Northern Baroque. So the Baroque is going to spread, and it's not just going to be in Italy, and it's going to go all over Europe and the New World. What you need to know is how it looks different than it does in Italy up in the northern countries. Okay. The idea that art can be theatrical, that it can be propagandistic, that it can be dramatic, exciting, that's going to carry through. All right. The idea that it's trying to win souls for the Catholic Church, that's not going to translate to the North, obviously, because they're not going to come back to the Catholic Church. But they are going to pick up on the styles of Caravaggio and others and run with that. Okay. In the North, they're going to emphasize those let me grab the pointer. They're going to emphasize non-religious subjects, portraits, genre, still life. While in Southern Europe, they're going to focus more on, the religious subjects, more that type of propaganda. Okay. Now up north, we have the Dutch Republic. All right. That is formed. And they're going to come out of war with Spain, a war for independence with Spain, and win. And they're going to found a republic there. And so they're going to find inspiration in their new freedom, as well as their new middle class. Like, there's going to be lots of new rich. They're going to find a lot of wealth up here in the north, in the Netherlands, because they are trading like they never have before. And in this time period, in the 17th century, they're going to become masters of the oceans, and they're going to just trade all over the planet and become very, very, very wealthy. And they want to flaunt that in their art. They're still going to be good, serious Protestant, people, but they want to flaunt their wealth, and they do it through art. Okay. So again, the layers of symbolism never goes away up north. That's kind of a thing that stays. And we're going to run into a thing called a vanitas. Okay. It's a way to find meaning in art, but without like a deeper spiritual significance in art, without actually having a religious painting. Okay. It's a way to remind you that you're going to die. And so you need to live a good life. So we're going to see that a couple times here today. All right, so we've got a couple pieces to talk about up here in the north. We've got 3 paintings, an etching, and a building. All right, I'm going to link this up above. This is about Rembrandt, our first artist, but it's good. It's a biography. It's a biographical sketch of him. Highly recommend it. Rembrandt is going to be the master portrait painter. He's going to be the master printmaker. He's going to be the master of the Northern Baroque in every sense. He is the best artist of his age. No questions asked. All right. He's going to paint group portraits. That's the thing. So up north, they're going to want their portraits painted. They going to want to show off their success. And often they're going to be part of groups or societies or companies that maybe can't afford individually a portrait. So they'll pitch in and get group portraits painted. And that's going to be their thing up here in the north. So group portraits are quite the rage. Rembrandt is very skilled at using light and painting kind of a spiritual quality to his light. All right. He's also going to paint himself more than any other artist in art history. Okay. He's going to paint dozens and dozens of self-portraits through the years. He's going to document his life. And he's going to love to buy things, to buy items to kind of show off his wealth and status as an artist, that he is the best artist in the country. And he's going to also love, for his self-portraits, he's going to love to dress up which is kind of funny. He dresses up in costumes, and he and his wife dress up in costumes and reenact moments and stories from history in the Bible, and yeah, and they just try on these different costumes, and he paints them. But above all, he loves telling a good story. All right. So up in the Netherlands, this is the piece that they give us, that AP gives us. Now his name is Rembrandt van Rijn. 1636. This is an etching. Okay, so this is like what we talked about previously with the type of metal plate scratching with the coating and the acid bath, and excuse me, that we talked about previously. Now this is not Rembrandt's most famous piece by any means, and this is not even his best print. But I think AP picks this one because this is him as a young man with his wife Saskia, and he shows us, I think they give it to us, they want us to look at this one because it is psychologically rich. Rembrandt is staring out at us, as is Saskia. They're like looking, they're making eye contact with us. He's doing a drawing, an etching, possibly the one that we're even looking at while he's looking at us. Okay. He's dressed up in costume. Okay, this was not fashionable for the day. They are dressed in costume. He gives us this rich darkness in his face, whereas Saskia is bathed in light. And you can see that she is detailed. If you think back to Durer, how every little line is placed, this is so much more free, but it's so descriptive in its freedom. You can tell what type of dress she's wearing with the frills and the collar and stuff. And it's only a little couple scribbles that he's giving to us. You can see the puffiness of his sleeve and the quick energy of his hand, those lines in his hand. All right. He's giving us very careful attention to their faces. There's a lot more detail in the faces compared to like the hands, because he wants to pull you in and make you look right here. So it's kind of this compare and contrast between the shadow and the light. And that's what he's famous for in all of his works is the portrayal of this light in his work and using shadow, because he's going to adopt the tenebrism of Caravaggio early on. Okay. So this is the self-portrait with his wife, Saskia. All right. He's showing us that he is a printmaker. Okay. She is his muse, and she's going to appear in many, many, many pieces. She dies young, and he outlives her by many years, unfortunately. But he loves her, and he paints and draws and sketches and engraves and etches her again and again. So this one was for them. This wasn't for sale. I love that this is just for them. And he's a young man. He's just 30 years old, and he's kind of showing off who he is and how he's the man about town. Okay. They're dressed fancy again, because that's who he is. But the line quality is the important thing to remember, as well as the intensity of the change in the light and the shadow. So this is Rembrandt van Rijn's self-portrait with Saskia. Now, also in the Netherlands, we're going to be getting lady artists. They're going to become a thing in the Netherlands. And the one we're going to take a look at is Rachel Roch. And here she is in portrait. Okay, Rachel Roch is a Dutch painter, and she's going to be painting still lifes. All right. A still life, if you've ever taken an art class, is just a collection of things that are rendered. Now, in the North, they're going to want to have still lives to show off some of their rich possessions that they've accumulated. So you'd have like your favorite things painted So as a way to document them and to show off again, like, haha, I can spend money on these things. And very often, though, they're also going to be of flowers. And they're going to love to paint like arrangements of flowers. See, we take for granted today in the 21st century that we can have flowers any time of the year, and we can get every kind of flower all year long. In the Netherlands, that wasn't in the 1700s, before refrigeration and before we were exporting flowers from South America. That wasn't a thing. Okay, so they would paint these pictures of flowers over a year, over the course of years to get the right. But then in the picture, so you would have these blossoms, these blooms that never could occur together in nature. You'd have tulips and sunflowers together, because they bloom at different times of the year, but you'd have them together in this painting to show, again, like the spectacle of, wow, that's cool, because you could never do it in real life. You would also be getting still lifes to show, like I said, a vanitas, a way to remind you that death is coming. Okay, so the one that they want us to see is The Fruit and Insects by Rachel Roch, 1711, oil on wood. Now, this one's hard to see because the image, this one's a hard picture to come by as far as finding reproductions of it to include in slideshows such as this. So this is a zoom in of kind of this lower portion of it. Oops, gosh, sorry. So you can see here, it kind of cuts off right about here, this next image, but it's a lot brighter. So we're going to take a peek at this. Okay, so this is called Fruit and Insects. And you can see instantly that, oh, wow, it's like in this rocky, kind of mossy grotto that we have, and there's your signature, these plants. We've got our grapes. We've got corn, maize. We've got barley. We've got a squash. We've got chestnuts, plums, peaches. It's not quite an apricot. I'm not sure. It's a stone fruit, whether it's another type of apricot or if it stone fruit. Let's go there. This guy right here. Now we have also an array of wildlife. We've got bugs. We've got this kind of mayfly, dragonfly kind of thing. We've got this large, like, rhinoceros beetle up here. We've got the snail shell. We've got the lizard who looks like he's about to pounce on the butterfly. We've got this other bicho right here with a nest with bird eggs. Okay, so this is doing a couple things. This picture is doing a couple things. It's showing us, again, the richness of the people who can afford these fruits and these foods. Corn, maize from the New World, exotic. Okay, that's not something you go to the grocery store to buy. Okay, that's exotic because it's New World. Not crazily readily available everywhere in Europe. So pricey. Same thing with the squash. Squashes are also going to be New World plants. Peaches and apricots and plums, again, are coming initially from Asia. By this point, they've made it much closer to Europe, but still not exactly a dime a dozen. And the grapes are, they're just so beautiful. Now, they're coming again at different times of the year. Corn is going to get harvested in September. Grapes are going to get harvested in July, as well as, your chestnuts. We're getting these things, again, from different times of the year that don't all ripen and are harvested at the same time. So on one level, it's to show that, I can afford these expensive foods, these global international foods. That's on one level. But at the same time, that's what the insects and the lizards and the things are for, because what do insects do to fruit? They devour it. Okay? It's showing, yes, that I may be in the bloom and the blossom, the fullness of life right now, but remember to be humble because you're going to die. So you need to make good choices and live a good life because you're not going to be here forever. All right. And so that's kind of the point of this picture. While on one hand to say, aha, I'm so rich, and the other to say, nope, but remember, you are still mortal and you will die. So it's a vanitas, and that's important to remember. Okay. I'll go ahead and link this into the description above, Rachel Roch. So we get that off balance, that asymmetrical composition, and that's important because it's going to be, again, very Baroque, very dramatic, very emotional in its arrangement. It's also going to use tenebrism. It's not just about that kind of spiritual light. It's about the kind of just the dramatic lighting of the Baroque period. So we've got that dark, dark background with that spotlight on the objects. Okay, so again, these things don't come together naturally or simultaneously. Rachel Roch is going to, her father is a botanist. And so he's going to be a scientist. He's going to collect these books of botany about life, plants and animals. And so she's going to use illustrations from these books as guides as well as actual objects. All right. And that is Rachel Roch's Fruit and Insects. Okay. Our next is similar, and this is Vermeer, Johannes Vermeer. And I'm going to link this, what Vermeer does with his pieces, in the description above. All right. Vermeer is painting interiors, and he only paints very, very few pictures in his life. And he's always painting the interior, and they're quiet interiors, and they're meant to show you the dignity of a quiet life. These aren't generals, these aren't gods, they're just people doing people things. So they're genre paintings. What this girl is doing, this is called Woman Holding a Balance, and this is in the National Museum in Washington, D.C. And it's a woman holding a balance, and what she's doing is she's weighing her pearls. So she's got out her jewels, and she's weighing them to see how much they're worth. Now, a kind of a common, everyday, nothing like spectacular. It's like you going and driving up to the ATM or looking on your phone and checking your bank account. That's kind of what she's doing. All right. But it does have another, because it's the North. Of course, it has this other meaning. So you see how he composes the picture. It's, again, this great, like, golden sectiony, asymmetrical type of composition. We get that light pouring in from the window, illuminating her face, illuminating the golden scale in her hands, illuminating the contents of the table, and then the rest is cast in shadow. So again, we're getting that tenebrism that we're seeing all over Europe at this time. Now, again, she's weighing pearls, and we've seen scales like this before. We've seen this in the Tympanum of Saint Foy, and we've seen this in the Last Judgment of Hugh Nefer. Okay? And Vermeer is doing this very tongue-in-cheek, because the picture in the background is a picture, and hopefully you recognize the picture in the background. It's a Last Judgment. There's Christ and Mandorla, the saints, the gathered, the rising of the dead, and the falling of the damned, just like we've seen 100 times already. And that he's doing this very, very purposefully, because again, it's a genre scene. It's just a woman leading a quiet, having a quiet Tuesday afternoon. But at the same time, because it's the North, it's religious without being religious. It has deeper spiritual meaning and implications without actually being about religion. Okay? So it's about the weighing of souls and the weighing of your life. How do you measure up against the balance? How are you going to be on the last day? Okay, so remember who you are, remember your place, remember your life, because all of these things are important. Maintain humility, because Judgment Day is coming. And that's the point of this picture. All right. Now, Flanders is part of today what is Belgium. Okay. Belgium doesn't exist at this point. But it's just here north of France. And so the nation of Flanders is going to exist, and it's going to be a Spanish territory. Okay, it's called the Spanish Netherlands because it's the part that doesn't get freed in the Dutch-Spanish War, right? They are also going to be very, because they're here in the ocean and they're here poised between Northern Europe and Southern Europe, and they're like a maritime trade power. They are going to still remain Catholic, which is important to know. Okay, so here in Flanders, which is today Belgium, we're getting this guy. Now, Peter Paul Rubens is the French ambassador. He's the ambassador to France from Flanders. Okay, so he's Flemish, and he goes to France as the ambassador. But he's also an artist. Here, what he's painting is this propagandistic picture about the King of France is marrying one of the Medici girls, okay, Marie de Medici. And he paints this whole series of pictures about them, about the arrival of Marie de Medici to France, okay? And it's full of allegory, and it's full of classical references, and it's full of dramatic storytelling and just kind of gaudy over the topness. And that's, again, so Baroque. So he paints this whole series of pictures. They're these allegorical retellings. So what would happen in an arranged marriage, especially of this caliber, of this magnitude, is that you would get your portrait painted, and it would go to your betrothed, and they could look at it and inspect it and say, yay or nay. So what's happening here is that Henry IV of France is receiving the portrait of Marie de Medici, and he's inspecting it. That's what's happening in this picture. And later they'll show like the marriage and her arrival to France and all that. But in this one, we're seeing that portrait getting received. Now, Rubens is going to be famous for his fleshy nudes, the Rubenesque woman. Yeah. So they're kind of very, very opulent, his pictures. So here we see Henry, the King of France, looking at the portrait, and the portrait is carried by Cupid and Hymen, all right, gods of love. And in his ear is whispering this figure, this allegorical figure, and she's wearing the fleur-de-lis. This is Marianne. She is the personification of France. So like the personification of America is Uncle Sam, right? The personification of England is John Bull. The personification of France is Marianne, and that's who she is. So this is France, the spirit of France, whispering in his ear like, do it, kiss the girl, yeah, this is the one, marry her. And you have Zeus and Hera looking out over the scene, approving, and Hera's the goddess of marriage, and she's, canoodling here with her husband Zeus, which they never actually did in the myths because, Zeus. But then you have the sacred animals to Hera. You've got the peacocks looking on as the sacred animal of Zeus, the eagle looking on. So that's what the story is about. That's what's happening here in this picture. You're getting this allegorical retelling of the presentation of this portrait to Henry. All right. And you can see again the rich background, the rich setting. Now you're going to see here that Rubens does not use tenebrism. Okay, because this is a very fulsome. This is more in line with like what was "Triumph in the Name of Jesus" by Gaudi, in the Church of Il Gesù, where it's just kind of opulent and over the top rather than using tenebrism. Okay, so this is kind of that other vein of Baroqueness. All right. So they were married by proxy in 1600, which means some other girl showed up to the court before Marie de Medici came, and they got married, and they were just pronounced married, and then she came later. Okay. Now in France, the French court is going to be run by Louis the 16th. Later, after we see Henry. Okay. Um, the piece that we're looking at here is the masterpiece of Louis the 14th, and it's the Palace of Versailles. He very purposely and very intentionally wants art to be the center of the artistic world is no longer to be Rome. He wants it to be Paris. And so he's going to try his hardest, and he does, and he succeeds just by like sheer spending, sheer power of wallet size. He's going to move the artistic capital of the world to Paris. And what's going to happen is he's going to call himself the Sun King. He's going to rule for 72 years, which is like unheard of. He's going to build this massive palace, and he's going to move all the courtiers and all the court out from the north, out from Paris to the palace, so he can keep his eye on them. And so everything is done in spectacle. Everything is done on a enormous scale, and he's going to do that to impress, to dazzle, and to divide his enemies. Okay, so here is Louis the 14th. Again, showing his opulence, his ermine and velvet robes, showing the fleur-de-lis, the symbol of France, his glorious wig, his velvet, his Persian silk rugs, his tapestries, the rich surroundings. This is Louis. Okay. And the palace that he creates, and he calls himself the Sun King, and we can see that he radiates out, like everything is centered from his bedroom. All right. And it radiates out to the whole complex. And it's all kind of centered right here in his bedroom. And so people were forced to like watch him go to bed, and everything was done in a spectacle and a ceremony. So this is the Palace of Versailles, royal residence. Again, I'll link this up in the description above. Okay. And this is the Northern Baroque, right? Very different from Italy, very, very different, but opulent and grand and beautiful. Okay.